There's something that my teacher told me a long time ago. He mentioned something about a heat lamp and how you can feel a heat lamp on your back without having to turn around and look at it. And in meditation, we have to realize that we're so caught up in the visual aspect of our lives. We're always using our eyes. And every time we look at something, it activates our frontal cortex and we think about what we're seeing. That's one thing that will give us a way to quiet our mind so that we can actually experience the within. Because as long as we're thinking, we're engaged with the world out in front of us. So try that now. Just sit up, close your eyes, and imagine that there's a heat lamp on your back. And imagine that you're feeling the heat of it, and just feel it on your skin. And notice how you're not using your eyes now. You're using an entirely different set of senses. You're using the sense of touch, essentially. You're feeling the heat. That shuts down your visual cortex. And because it shuts that down, it quiets your thinking because you're not looking at anything. You're feeling. You've dropped kind of below your visual and you're entering into your feeling. Now just work that up a little bit. Feel it on the back of your neck. Say like you're sitting outside on a summer day and the sun is coming down, and then just work it up a little bit farther. You're feeling it on the upper back part of your head. You're not looking at it, you're just feeling it. Now imagine it like directly overhead. So you're feeling it right on the crown of your head. Still not looking at it, just feeling it. Okay. Now just come back into your normal awareness. You can wiggle your fingers and toes if you need to. Open your eyes. So how did that go? What did that do to your thinking?
It seems to make you more spatially aware, make me more spatially aware.
Yeah, yeah, it kind of opens you up, doesn't it? Get a sense of a space.
It helps get the thinking away, like you say.
Yeah. You know what I like to do sometimes is I will listen for something that I can't possibly hear. Um, Say a cricket walking across the grass outside. No way I could hear that. But I pretend that I can. And so that really gets me out of my eyes and into my hearing. And the only way I could possibly hear that is to hear it with the inner ear. And I don't mean, you know what I mean by that, the inner faculty of hearing. But that too, the harder we listen, the we can't listen and have that chatter going on in our mind. In meditation, it's good to have, well, it's not just good, it's really necessary that we have a purpose for meditating. And the purpose I wanted to explore tonight was how to get past fear. And as we know, both of those are dependent on our story, the story we're telling ourselves about what we're experiencing. And what we're experiencing is always dependent on what we're seeing, right? We ask, we'll tell somebody a story and we say, do you see what I mean? It's even in our speech, in our figures of speech, that seeing and understanding seem to go hand in hand because our visual faculty helps us orient ourselves in the world, but it's always forward. We very rarely have eyes in the back of our head. We're very rarely sensing what's in back of us. Fear has a lot to do with what we're seeing, how we understand what's in our visual range. We're looking, we see our situation, we see where we are, and then we interpret that. Is this dangerous or is this safe? And it all depends upon our interpretation. And there are these companies that train people how to live in foreign countries that are during wartime or just stressful times, like in like in Israel right now, or any place where there's a threat of being abducted or getting caught in some kind of violence. And what they tell their clients is that don't be afraid. Don't be afraid all the time, because if you're afraid all the time, then you're not going to pick up on the subtle cues that tell you that something is actually up. So they train people to identify a baseline, and they also train military people and security people. They say you establish a baseline. If you come into an intersection, say, and there are a lot of people there, you scan it, you see if it's normal. And if you spot anything that's not normal, then that you want to pay attention to. And then you assess that individually. You know, like if somebody is obviously, everybody is maybe lightly dressed, but this one guy has a jacket on, you know, hands in his pocket and zipped up in front. That's not normal, because it doesn't match what everybody else is doing. So a security person or a military person would immediately think we might have something under that jacket. So that's the kind of thing, right? Or if you see a parked car, say you're walking down the street in any city and it's at night and there's hardly anybody around, but you see a parked car with 4 guys sitting in it. They're not talking to each other. They're just sitting there and the lights are off. That's a red flag, right? That's something that you really should pay attention to and avoid. But if you're always afraid, then you kind of wear out your detection system, you might say. You don't. If you're always afraid, then you're not letting your subconscious alert you to actual threat. So the idea is to be relaxed and always be aware of what's normal. You know, does everything look normal? Then you relax into that, and you realize that anything is possible, but not everything is probable. You see, this is what establishing a baseline will do for you. It gives you a sense of probability. Like if you're at home at night alone and you've been in that situation for years, you know, nothing has ever happened. The probability of something happening is very, very low. So you relax into that. But then if you hear an unusual noise, or if you hear a car drive by or something like that, that perks your attention and you can check it out. But it's not probable that that's a threat. So all you're doing is you're noticing. You see? So the way this translates into just, and what we're dealing with here is like not battling, but trying to find a remedy for this background anxiety that we might be feeling. Because everything that's on the news, a lot of what our conversation entails, is just bristling with fear. You know, it's everybody's afraid right now. Everybody's worried. And because of there's a lot of uncertainty. There is no normal anymore. Everything is abnormal. So that creates anxiety because we don't know what's going to happen. So just knowing that, understanding that, gives us the incentive to really control our thinking in a dynamic way, like I'm describing. It's like figuring out what is normal, what's abnormal, and consciously and deliberately relaxing into the normal so that background anxiety diminishes. Unless you can manage that, unless you can get that background anxiety to lower, then essentially it creates a wall between you and the world within, your inner world, because your whole system won't let you go within, because to go within, you have to shut down your sensory apparatus. So essentially, by buying into a constant state of threat, you're shutting yourself off from the experience of God. This necessitates a degree of mind control because you're working against your instincts. If you have this built up anxiety in you, you're going to be on constant lookout, and it's so much worse when the threat is unspecified. You just feel this generalized threat, but you don't know where or what it is. And that's just the mind running away with itself. That's like a runaway train. So in order to meditate, you have to establish a baseline. You have to establish a normalcy. One of the teachers from back in the 70s, latter part of the 20th century, he said he had this little mantra he would tell himself, I'm all right right now. I'm all right right now. That counters that background anxiety, takes your attention off of the future and puts it in the present moment. And then you're establishing that the present moment, you're okay. You're all right right now. And then if you go within, then you have a clear field. You have a clear access to go within because you've already established that everything is okay on the outer. So your body is going to let you go within. But if you don't establish that first, then it's not going to let you. It's even if you think you're not checking out your environment all the time, you will be, even at a subconscious level. So by deliberately practicing establishing normalcy and establishing like an okay zone, and you can do that with your will. You can say, I am all right now. Right now, I am okay. There's no threat. I am good. And you can surround yourself with light. You can ask your angels to set up a protective perimeter, like a circle of light around your house or a dome of light that covers your house. And the more you practice that, then the more established it becomes in the mind of God, and the more real it becomes, and the more powerful it becomes. And then you really can relax deeply, because to go within, you really have to relax. You relax every muscle in your body. You stay alert, and you stay in a ready. You're ready. You're not just like you're not just going to collapse or go to sleep. And as you go through relaxing your muscles, you can also, and this is really, really helpful, you can ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? What am I feeling? What's going on inside me? And this can be very illuminating, because you might go within and feel like you might feel that anxiety. You might feel a tension in your muscles. And then you can say you're tight in your back, your back muscles are tight, or your shoulders are hunched. You can deliberately drop your shoulders and then put your attention on the muscles in your back, like these muscles and muscles over your shoulder blades, and just consciously and deliberately relax them. And as you do, see if it brings up any feelings, because like if your shoulders are like this, what does that say? Like, what would be the body language if somebody's like this? If they're hunched their shoulders, it's like they're protecting, right? It's like you're shrinking yourself down so you're not so big a target. So then you ask yourself, well, what am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? And that might be something in your surroundings, right? Something that maybe you should check out and see. And then maybe it might be something simple, like you left the stove on in the kitchen, or it might be something just as simple, you left the car unlocked, or the front door unlocked, or anything like that. So our feelings are indicators, and they're like warning signals to us. If we're having a negative feeling, it means that something is not right in our environment, and we really should check it out. But say we do that, and then we realize, no, everything is okay. I've covered all the bases. Everything is fine. I'm not in any kind of insecure situation. So we discover that it's like leftover anxiety from the day, maybe, or maybe it's been there for years. So what are you protecting yourself? Are you protecting yourself from criticism? Are you protecting yourself from being startled? It's very likely some trauma in your past that has that caused you to be afraid, and you're carrying that around with you. So as you deliberately relax your muscles and you examine the feelings around them, then you may be able to detect a memory coming up. And as that memory comes up, you can say, oh, okay, well, I've been carrying that around all this time. Maybe it's time to let go of it. So you can relax and you can breathe and you can maybe use forgiveness or tell a different story about it. Like that happened back then, but I'm all right now, you see, and you let it just relax and relax. And then even if it doesn't go away completely, you can also just be present to it, but realize that it is a past trauma. And okay, it's there and it's not, you can't completely let go of it. But just by acknowledging it, then you're taking the energy of it and you're bringing it into your present life. And then that the energy that's been held by that trauma, as though it's trapped, it starts to release, and then you're able to use that in whatever you're doing in the present moment. So like using this example, like something from the past, it was traumatic. You might, go check the mail in the mailbox. You have to walk 50 feet, see if you have any mail. And you can use that energy to enhance your awareness without being afraid. You see, the energy itself is neutral. Your interpretation of it being fearful is just that, it's an interpretation. So you take your attention off of the interpretation and just put it on the energy. You feel this kind of, protection, but you relax, but you take that feeling of wanting to be protected with you as you check the mailbox, which is that's a neutral action too. So that energy is being called into play into that very simple action of checking for the mail. This is energy work. This is like practical, feet on the ground kind of energy work. You're taking something that has been held in your body for all this time, and you're releasing, you're loosening it up so that it can get back into your system as energy, and you can use that energy in some positive, simple positive action. And as you do, then you'll notice that you'll have more energy because you just added a good chunk of energy into your system that was previously unavailable. So anything that you've got held in you for all this time, that's like money in the bank, but you have to withdraw it. You have to loosen up and let that energy come into you, and then act with it. You see, let it come into your muscles to do whatever you need to do. And it doesn't, and you don't have to change it, because like if this works with shameful things too. If you have something shameful in your memory that causes you to shrink, that's very debilitating. So, and that's a hard one to deal with because nobody likes to feel ashamed. That's one of the worst feelings there is. But if you get honest with it and realize, oh, okay, yeah, I'm feeling that. So you can be involved in anything, you can be at work, or you can be washing the dishes or talking to your spouse or putting your kids to bed. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're aware of the energy of it and you use the energy in whatever you're doing in that moment, that breaks down the story that holds it in place. It frees up the energy and therefore integrates it into your normal. You see, you don't have to continue to be ashamed. You can acknowledge that, yeah, that was a terrible thing that happened, terrible thing I did. And but being in that feeling, then you can do something positive in the world with confidence and straightforwardness. And as you do that, that energy then starts to move and is put into action. And then it creates kind of a cycle. You take it from within yourself, you put it into the world, and then it comes back into you as positive energy. So you're using the energy, and as you use it, it integrates itself into you in a way that promotes your life, your livingness, your aliveness. And it's no longer bound up inside you. And if you know, some people have so much of that going on inside of them that they get sick because it robs their body of energy, and especially it robs different parts of their body of energy, and that part of their body will get sick because it's not getting the energy that it needs. So this is kind of the basics of energy work and how it ties into the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. And it especially breaks through that wall of unconsciousness, because those things, especially something like shame or fear or trauma, those things we tend to bury. We don't want to look at them, so we don't. We keep them stuffed, and then we pretend we're normal. But all the time, we've got all this locked up inside of us. That's not being spiritual. You see, it's kind of the opposite. Because to be spiritual means to have the spirit moving through us freely and fully. We can't have anything locked up inside of us. And because if we do, when we go within, if our purpose in meditation is to know God more fully, then that's going to be in our way. That's kind of like the dweller on the threshold. It's the guardian at the gate saying, nope, it's like in Genesis, the angel with the flaming sword at the gate of the Garden of Eden to make sure that Adam and Eve can't get back in. See, it's kind of like that. You'll have an angel with a flaming sword keeping you from going within and connecting with God, because you've got these unresolved energy blockages within you. So these are things as you go within, like what we just did a few minutes ago, is we felt that heat lamp on our backs, and that shuts down the thinking and it opens up this spaciousness behind us. And that's like an influx of energy, of spiritual energy. And then that increased level of energy is going to agitate the subconscious, because the mind's going to say, whoa, what's that? You know, it's this vast space behind me that's unknown. Well, if it's unknown, there's got to be a threat in there, right? But the only reason it'll think that there's a threat in there is because you have unresolved trauma. So what else would you expect, right? Because and the danger could be as simple as, oh no, if I go within, then I'm going to have to deal with things that I've kept suppressed for a long time. And I don't want to look at those things, see, because they bring up really awful feelings. But we have to, you know, we simply have to, because those things are eventually going to come out anyway. And if they don't come out while we're alive, they will come out right after we die. Then we'll be faced in our retrospection. You know, when people die, they go through a retrospection. They relive their life. It happens very quickly, but very thoroughly. And if you've got a lot of unresolved stuff in there, that's going to get in the way of that process functioning smoothly. And that can cause you to suffer after you've died. And I think this is what, you know, the Catholics mean when they talk about purgatory, right? Because the process will then become a process of purgation. You have to purge yourself of all of these unresolved tangles within your energy structure, which doesn't die. your body dies, but your energy structure doesn't die. And so then you have to work it out there on the other side. So it's way better. This is why they say die before you die. It's like go through that process of purgation and work out all of the trapped energies within you before you have to do it then, because it's better to do it now. Let's just put it that way. So meditation can be deep and profound, and as you resolve these tangled parts in your energy system and you loosen them up and integrate the energy, and they start to move and then become part of you in a positive way, then you're free to explore areas that you can't even imagine now. I mean, that spaciousness behind you is an entire world, a spiritual world that you can explore. And it's bigger than the world that this world that we're aware of with our eyes and our senses. So, and it's really quite thrilling and quite exciting to explore that world, because we're having to use a whole different set of senses. It's like a baby when it's born in this world has to learn how to use its body and all of its senses. We're like that in the spiritual realm. When we wake up within, then we have to discover what kind of vehicle we're in and how it works and how we perceive with it. So meditation not only helps us open up in our consciousness and has all of those other benefits, but it helps us prepare for the afterlife. Because if our energy structure, when our energy structure comes into a more relaxed and more integrated state, then the transition from physical to spiritual, from this life to the next life, is smooth. Doesn't have any hitches. There are no barriers, no blockages. So it's of tremendous value. It's as valuable to your soul as physical exercise is valuable to your body. So you can think of meditation as exercise for the soul. You flex your soul muscles, you use your spiritual senses, and that's really in the realm of feeling. And I don't mean emotions. So distinguish between feelings and emotions. Feeling is like when you feel the heat lamp on your back. Or feeling might be like when you feel somebody looking at you from behind. Or a feeling might be if you've really mastered this to any degree, then when a feeling of anxiety comes up, but there's nothing in your immediate environment that you can identify, you see, that might be a good time to check your bank balance, or to check something that is not within your immediate field of purview. So you might call somebody, hey, are you okay? Especially if a thought of them arises, you see, because as we become more spiritually conscious, our field of awareness expands greatly, and those signals that are normally very, very subtle and unable to get through to us because we've got all these energy blockages, we start to pick up on them, and we become almost psychic at that point. And people experience that. They say, somebody will call and you'll say, gee, I was just thinking of you, that kind of, and synchronicity and even clairvoyance or prescience, having a sense that something's going to happen, or having a dream and then having what you dreamed about actually happen. that you start to open up, you start to awaken these more subtle faculties within yourself. And then life starts to get really interesting. You say way more than your normal state. So when we go into meditation, the first thing to do is to really tune out external stimuli. And to do that, you have to feel safe. And if you've got something that constitutes an unspecified anxiety within you, you need to deal with that. And then, but once you get that dealt with, even to a small degree, that gives you more access to go within. You're more relaxed, so you can go within. And then you start listening and feeling what's coming, those signals that are coming toward you from in there. You see, not from out here, but from within. And people who have this well developed, boy, you really notice them. You can tell they really have a sixth sense that's undeniable. And you don't have to be born with that. This is something that you develop. You develop it just like you would develop the ability to go on long hikes, or to run. Very analogous to physical fitness. You can develop an inner fitness that sharpens your perceptions of those very subtle signals that are coming to you from within. Then when you talk with somebody, you'll notice that, oh my God, they're feeling insecure. They're talking to me, but they're feeling insecure. That might be something you'd never noticed before. But now you start to notice something like that. And then you can use your personal skills just to help them not feel so insecure when they're talking with you, right? You can put them at ease. But you have to see that they're insecure before you can actually do something about it. So the more awake you become and sensitive to these more subtle energies around you, then the more real you become, the more authentic you can be with other people, because you can actually see them and actually feel them. So the benefits of leading a spiritual life and pursuing an inner consciousness through meditation has enormous advantages for you in every area of your life. And this is why we practice it. And one of the biggest obstacles is our eyes, really. It's our visual sense of the world that gets in the way, because our eyes draw us into the world. So we not only shut our eyes. How many times have you been in meditation and you close your eyes, but you're still looking with your eyes, trying to see something through your eyelids, as though you're looking into another dimension, but it's with your eyes through your eyelids. It doesn't usually work like that. It's a complete reversal. You're reversing all of that. You're shutting down that urge to look, and you're shifting into that which feels. The more you do that, the more you wake it up, which means it's waking up the dormant areas in your brain that are connected to that. And then you start noticing these signals that you're getting, these vibrations, these situations, presence, all kinds of things that ordinarily you wouldn't even think of, much less be aware of. So it really helps to understand that the mass mind has a lot of fear in it, and a lot of sadness, and a lot of emotion. And emotion is a way to hook people. Everybody is grabbed by the throat, you might say, when we hear about horrible things happening other places. And if you practice dissociating from the world in this way, it doesn't make you less of a feeling person. It actually makes you more of a feeling person. It doesn't make you less compassionate. It makes you more compassionate because your emotions aren't getting in the way of compassion. Because compassion and emotion are two very different things. If you have compassion without being emotionally reactive, then the object of your compassion, whether it's one person or a bunch of people, it opens up all of a sudden, and then you are able to see the situation more fully, more completely. What you see more of what's causing the problem. And anytime you see the cause of a problem, then you're better able to engage in problem solving. You see, but if you're engaged emotionally with it, then that shuts that down because it involves you in this story, and it actually closes you off spiritually, puts you into your emotions, and then you become reactive, and then if injustice is involved or perceived injustice, then you get reactive and angry, and then you're so cut off from the spiritual part of your life that you're fully in the world and you're at the effect of the world and you're just being led around by the nose. Whoever can stoke your emotions will control your attention. And in sales, that's the first principle of sales, is get their attention. You see, I think it's attention, interest. You get their attention, then you get them interested. You see, and then you talk about benefits, and then you close the deal. Right? You motivate them to take action. So if you know that, then look at it in yourself. What's grabbing your attention, and what's being asked of you? Are you being asked to feel anguish? Are you being asked to feel anger? And ask is a kind of a weak word. You might say prompted, because it's really what they are. They're prompts. And are you going to give over to that prompt? Are you going to use that to program yourself and then act in accordance with what they're prompting you to do? Then you're just a person in the world at that point. You have no real tangible spiritual presence in the world. You're no longer a cause. You're just at the effect. You're just at the effect of somebody else. And you're easily led. You're easily lied to. So the one good way to measure how you're doing in your meditation is to measure your own reactivity. How much are events in the world rattling you? And to that degree, that's how out of touch you are with your own being. You've kind of relinquished your being. You turn your back on your being, and you're using your ego, your sense of self-identity, what you identify with, and what your value system in terms of your identity, and what's being violated, and what's catching you by surprise, or what's anything that's going to get a rise out of you. And then when you watch a video or you see something on TV or on the radio or whatever, however you get your news, pay attention. What's the message? And a lot of times, they'll tell you about something, but they'll focus on the human misery. And they may take a victim of a crime or a victim of war or any kind of a person who you could call a victim, and they'll tell you all about their life and how horribly their life got messed up by what somebody else did to them. But there's no facts, there's no context, there's no backstory, there's no history. It's just all focused on the emotion. And we love stories, right? And stories with feeling are especially compelling because they can hook us. That's what the meaning of the word hook is. You hook people with a story. And if that story is laden with emotion, especially negative emotion, boy, you're done. You know, you're like fish on a hook. So you start to become aware. And then if you detect somebody trying to play that game on you, then you can dissociate from it, and then you actually start seeing more of the truth of the situation. And that truth can be very complicated, and it can be in motion. You know, it can be changing on a daily basis, but then you're able to keep up with it instead of trying to fit a truth onto any situation. You can then move with it and see, oh, okay, well, this is changing, these circumstances have changed, now we have to see the whole situation differently. Meditation makes you smarter. It makes you better able to analyze problems, and it makes you more imaginative so that you can also come up with better solutions to problems, to solve problems. And whether it's macro or micro, you know, whether it's world problems or problems in your own life, it puts you in a better position to handle what needs to be handled, but you can do so dispassionately. You don't get reactive. Your emotions aren't all trapped and involved. And 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 two, those blockages I was talking about earlier, those tangles, those knots in your spiritual body, those your reactivity can hook those into it too and stoke those, but in a negative way. So then you start identifying with something that's happening to somebody else with something that happened to you because you haven't dealt with it, you see. And then you're letting the world deal with it for you, but it's not really dealing with it. It's just using it to hook you even deeper. So, you know, there are a number of generic traumas that people suffer, you know, abandonment, betrayal, shame, guilt, um, actual physical trauma. All of these things can be we can carry them around with us. And if you're good at psychology and you're involved in sales, or you're just trying to get people's attention, you know, like on the news, then you can play directly to those issues that are generic. It's just simply psychology. And it's a pretty well-known science of how to do that. But you know, you don't study that, you don't get good at it unless you're in sales or you're in media or you're in some position where you need to be a leader or influence people. And then but it's actually just manipulation. You see? So if you become aware of these things, then you are immediately aware of being manipulated. And you can say, no, I I'm not falling for that. I need more information, you see, because information is way more valuable than an emotional response or reaction, because information is what we need to solve problems. But emotions, they don't solve any problem. They are only additive. They add to the problem, you see. So meditation is so useful because it's developing your inner senses, it's developing your mind, and it's developing your heart, your direct connection to other people, because the emotions then are cleared away so you can have an actual connection, an actual feeling connection. I know people who are in healthcare, alternative healthcare, Their patient can lay on a table and they can scan the person. They can take their hands and run their hands across the person like this, over their body, and they can locate the problem in their body. They can actually tell which organ is in distress, or they can tell which bone is out of alignment, or they can even detect if, and it takes knowledge. You have to have the background knowledge in order to interpret what you're feeling, right? You have to know how to read what you're feeling. They can even detect chemical imbalances. I mean, I know some people who are really good at that. And then they prescribe a treatment and the person gets better. So that's proof, it's measurable. So this is not all imaginary stuff. This is applicable energy work. This is how you can really bring heaven and earth together, because heaven is that higher range of vibration, that higher dimension that is just above the earth, but is interacting with the earth. It's a two-way street. But if you're not aware of that, all you've got is just the world of effects, and then you have to guess what the causes are. But if you're awake spiritually, you've got the other half, and you can see what the causes are, and then you can address those. So you get more intelligent, you get more intuitive, you get a deeper sense of the other person. So you have a greater empathy, actual empathy, not just a commiseration, but a real empathy. You can feel what they're feeling, you see, but without involving yourself in it, you see. So that makes you very effective in helping people. So these are, this is just kind of a glimpse of what's possible and what falls under the heading of meditation. If we approach it in this way, if we approach it intelligently, we approach it with purpose and with intention. Because when you sit down and you go back within there, there's an immediate reaction to want to come back out of there because it's so unfamiliar and can even feel uncomfortable. But if you have inner discipline and a focused mind, you can go in and stay in there and learn how to operate in there. And then once you get a sense of that inner world, then you can bring it into action into your everyday life, into things you're doing in your life. And the two become amalgamated and integrated. And pretty soon you're just heaven on earth. So you have such an expanded consciousness that you can see what other people can't see. You can understand what other people cannot understand. And then you have greater facility to actually be a positive influence in the world. You can be a true spiritual agent in the world. If you want to, see, that's a big part of it. You have to want to be that. You have to have the desire to be of help, the desire to serve, simply the desire to make the world a better place. But you can't do it if you're working with only half of the picture. So you have to have both halves, the upper and the lower. And you have to know how they interact. You have to be able to sense and see and understand what real causes are. So I wanted to bring this out to you, so that not only to help you in your actual meditation, but to motivate you to meditate more by showing you what the benefits are and how real they are and how useful it is. I mean, it literally makes you a smarter person. It literally makes you more empathetic. It literally helps you to understand in ways that you'll be surprised that you didn't see the connections between things and events. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say. And so I'm interested in how this comes across to you, how it makes you feel, if it brings anything up, or if you have any Any experiences you'd like to share? So I'll open the floor to you guys and unmute yourselves. That has a certain degree of usefulness and, like punching a pillow, that kind of thing. But it's far better to do it in human interaction because
Wow.
because when you're running on a treadmill, you're not really connected with anybody. You're just yourself. And so the energy doesn't really have a real extended way to engage with the world. So if you do that when you're engaged with somebody else, you see, you have the heart connection, and the energy can run through your heart, and that's where the real transformation takes place. Because just trying to work it out on a treadmill machine or punching a pillow or whatever, all those techniques, it doesn't really work. I mean, it relieves stress, but you haven't addressed the underlying cause of the stress. And so that energy is still unresolved. One reason why a lot of people don't do it, because they're afraid of becoming another person. They're afraid of change. And not going to lie, we're all afraid of that, right? We don't want to become somebody else that we don't know. I mean, what if we don't know what that person's going to be? But if we trust in God, then we let that happen. And every time I've done it, and of course it's multi-layered thing, it's Jacob's ladder, really. You go up in stages. Every time it happens, I feel more of a person. I feel more of myself. I feel more authentic and more capable. So, and then I look back and I think, why was I stuck in the person I was? And the answer is obvious. I was just afraid. I was afraid to change. So it really is, it's a life of faith. You have to have faith that God knows what he's doing, what she's doing, and that it's the butterfly thing, it's breaking out of the cocoon and becoming a different creature altogether. That caterpillar turns into mush, and then it transforms, it reorganizes into a new being. That's why that symbol is there. That's the story of Jesus being shattered on the cross and being buried, and then resurrecting into a whole new person. And we go through that in repeated stages. It's an inner transformation and the fuller expression of who we really are. Our soul then becomes more and more exposed, more and more engaged with the world, and who we really are. All the depth of us, you see, gets to come out and be present in the world. And that's real soul growth.
Yesterday, the last line really struck me with all of this, like kind of cuts right to the heart of it for me. And it's the last line of it is, do you trust that God will take care of you? I think that's an excellent question to set in and to ask, to rest in and be real with oneself about.
I think that's really the reason for religion. Because I don't know of any religion really well, I know Christianity can go off the rails and teach you about a punishing God and make people worry about going to hell and all that. That's really awful. It's unconscionable, really. The real Christian message is that God loves you and that you can relax and fall into the arms of Christ, like they say.
Right.
And these trying to bring people into the church by scaring the hell out of them, there's no excuse for that. It has nothing to do with the reality. So yeah, it's learning to trust God and really let go into it. But
Right.
you have to have a sense of up and down, or good and evil, let's say, just using these words as a working model. That that if you let go to your baser instincts, that will take you down, right?
Right.
That's going to destroy you, destroy your life.
Right.
And we've all done it in big ways and little ways. We just act impulsively, or instinctually without giving something thought, being, or without exercising self-restraint, even to the point where it's painful. If we just let go and do whatever we want, then our life goes to hell. I mean, it just gets really
Yeah.
awful.
Well,
Yeah.
we
So,
listen. We're in such a unique position as far as our known or agreed upon history right now, where we're, especially us in the United States, the average person, we have all of these stimulus and gratifications like at our fingertips and distractions constantly, like never before, right?
right.
Like
Yeah.
it's only in the last 2 generations there's been food on demand, right? I mean, that's so we have it all, like, and so I think part of it is part of people when they go into this trusting there's always there's this part in the brain that's like expecting something to like there's these ideas that people have of what's supposed to be happening or what's supposed to happen or what's not happening, right? Like when they go in, it's like, and then that's okay, but you gotta like just watch that whole dynamic play out, right? And then
Yeah.
let it settle down and then just let be what is. And it goes back to asking the question, do I trust that what is called God will take care of me?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for me, I when I'm doing well, I recognize that of the eons of time that have existed, we are here right now. So I can say emphatically, absolutely, without question, that I have been cared for.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the thing in the present moment. It's always, it is the unknown. I think you said that, Michael.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is also where we find all the good things that we're looking for. It's always here and now, right?
Yeah. It's the only place that connection can take place, to actually connect, is in the present moment.
I'm glad you brought that up. Did you guys? I'm sure you saw the article where the physicist just basically just talks about the non-locality of reality and
Mm-hmm.
talking about our connection to everything, how close they're getting. Like, did you read that
Mm-hmm.
article?
Yeah. It sounds. I've been
It's a
reading a
no.
lot.
It's legit. It's a Nobel Peace. Not no no Nobel Peace. A Nobel Prize winning physicist or mathematician, and he just figured the formulas out for showing mathematically that space and time are completely non-local, like we think about the world being here, right? So everything that you are doing where you are is affecting everything that's occurring what's perceived right here
Mhm.
and vice versa. So that's where praying for someone or seeing someone in light and really seeing them blessed and loved is
Hmm.
is it's real, it's legitimate, it's not that it has to be justified by something, but it's nice to see how science is so close to the same page as the mystics understanding of these
Hmm.
things.
It's kind of the way I see Emmanuel, the like imminence, emergence of, you could say like the Christ emerging right now. It's just below the surface. It's always just below the surface of coming into being. And that's how close everything really is. It's like we have this conception of everything being so far and like you say, but it's always just right here. And even saying that is powerful, and it's a good reminder.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. Yes.
It brings it into a much more real perspective, doesn't it, Jesse?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.